I oppose the donation of this land because charter schools should not be allowed a foothold in Knoxville. The claim that, thank you, the claim that charter schools provide greater options for families is often countered by the accounts of exclusionary enrollment, push-out practices that are viewed as common to many charter schools. Many participants in the 2017 NCAAP Task Force report on charter schools testified about students with special needs, those perceived as poor test takers, or those who pose as a behavioral challenge are either not accepted or once enrolled are disciplined or counseled out by many charter schools. Hillary Shelton, the director of the NAACP Washington Bureau, noted that it is our unfortunate experience that in some cases, charter schools are being used to perpetuate discrimination. While public schools are required to take every student, it is the option of charter schools to admit Johnny, but not Jamal or Jose. Witnesses explained that while a charter school may claim to be open to all students, between reserving seats prior to any lottery process, selective enrollment, the use of exclusionary discipline processes, or counseling out of students, they may actually be exclusive. Most studies have found that charter schools are more racially and economically segregated than public schools generally, including underserving English learners and special education students relative to the public schools in their districts. A study conducted by the UCLA Civil Rights Project in 2006 found that black males are over 3 times more likely to get suspended or expelled from charter schools than their white peers, and that nearly 50% of black students attending a charter school were enrolled in schools where the suspension rate for black students was about 25% annually. One of the central tenets of charter schools is that they are closed if they do not deliver on the educational commitments outlined in their charters. Since the 2016-17 school year, approximately 211 charter schools have closed across the United States. Since 2001, at least 2,500 charter schools have closed, affecting nearly 300,000 American children enrolled in primary and secondary schools. School closures disproportionately affect black students. In 2013, one analysis in Chicago found that black students composed 40% of the student enrollment in the district, but accounted for 88% of the students affected by closures. Similarly, in Philadelphia, black students composed 58% of the district's enrollment, but made up 81% of students affected by closures. During the Memphis hearing, the director of the National Education Association described how school closures especially hurt black students. Black students are particularly susceptible to being impacted by school closures. From the year 2000 to 2012, black students are 29% of all students enrolled in charter schools, yet 45% of all students in charter schools that closed during those years were black. While school closures are sometimes seen as evidence that charter schools are in fact more accountable than public schools, charter school closures can seriously disrupt students' learning, especially when closures occur during the school year. The director further described the effects of school closures on family and students. Charter schools are far less stable schooling options for communities than traditional or magnet schools. 40% of all charter schools opened in 2000 were no longer operating by 2013. School closures are touted by charters as evidence of high accountability, but beyond the disruption they create for students, families, and communities, a study of 3 cities found that students in closed charter schools typically do not move on to higher performing schools. Charter schools are just one more market-based solution to a non-market problem. Education is a public good, and for the good of society, it should be high quality for all students, regardless of their neighborhood. We should not be donating land to private schools. We should be reimagining the tax system that funds public schools to get more money into schools like Austin East.